for people to be calling for the officers to get fired and lose their jobs, it's like, what were they supposed to do in a scenario when somebody opens fire on them? Are you dumb? Like, I really don't get that. What's up, world? Welcome back to Cancer Thoughts. It's your boy Better Days here. For those of you guys who are new to the channel or haven't heard me say this before, I live in Chicago. Chicago is my home, and we've been living in Chicago now for most of my life, ever since we moved here in about 2004, 2005. I can't really remember how long ago it was because it was so long ago, and I was really, really young when it happened, and I was young enough to where I could pick up the English language with very little resistance, because obviously you guys can tell that I don't really have a Nigerian accent or anything like that, but I also do speak the language of my motherland, and I love it. So for those of you Nigerians who are out there, mo gbọ́ èdè Yorùbá, ẹ má dẹ̀ bínú sí mi nítorí mi ò kí ń sọ èdè Yorùbá lórí channel yìí nítorí ìlú òyìnbó là ń gbé, ó dẹ̀ yẹ ká lè sọ èdè wọn dáadáa, so ẹ má bínú sí mi ẹ jọ̀ọ́. That being said, I love Chicago. Chicago is my home, and I will always love Chicago, and I will always love this country as well, just to throw that in there. But one of the things I really hate about Chicago and really the country as a whole is just the proclivity toward violence and the proclivity toward crime that kind of happens in this city. And that's maybe just in the nature of cities and metropolitan areas as a whole, because they're a melting pot for a lot of things, and one of those things just happens to be crime. Even though there are always many opportunities that present themselves in major cities, one of the downsides is the amount of crime that kind of happens in these cities. And it's really sad, because it makes a lot of people not really want to live in the city very much, myself included, and it makes people like me not even want to leave my house because I live in the city. And it's one of the things that I've been doing very recently that's really upset me, but it's just a necessity, because I don't ever want to be caught in the wrong place at the wrong time, or doing something that I thought was okay and just to find out that it wasn't really okay just because of whatever neighborhood that I was in or anything like that. So one of the things that really bothers me about major cities is that. And today we're going to be talking a little bit about a story that kind of broke a little over a month ago. For those of you guys who don't know, a guy by the name of Dexter Reed was stopped by police officers on, I believe it was March 20th or March 21st. I don't necessarily know the exact day, but it was a little over a month ago now. And the story was essentially broken that police officers had murdered another young black man or whatever. And a lot of people got really triggered and upset by that story, because obviously we've all been conditioned by the media for really the better part of the last decade now to believe that whenever the police have any kind of interactions where anybody gets murdered or any civilian gets murdered, especially if they're black, people get triggered as to what really happened, why were the police stopping him, and why did they shoot him, and was he unarmed, and all that. So today we're going to be going over a little bit of the issues that I had with that story as a whole. But before we get into that, you guys already know what I'm about to ask you guys to do. I need you guys to hit that like and subscribe button for more content. I'm trying to make sure as many people find this channel as possible, and the only way I'm gonna do that is with you guys' help. So
come on, help a brother out.
this man, he was about 26 years old at the time. He was stopped by the police, and it was reported as a routine traffic stop. And what pretty much happened was, and a lot of people had a lot of feelings about this, but what pretty much happened was a shootout ended up ensuing at that traffic stop, and
it was absolute chaos.
It ended up with one officer being shot and the man in question, Dexter Reed, dying. Dexter was, as I said already, 26 years old at the time, and a lot of people have since been really upset about it. I've seen a lot of posts on social media about, 96 shots and a lot of these things that usually happen with all the headlines and stuff like that. And one of the things that really bothered me the most was that the story wasn't even completely fleshed out before people had this immediate reaction. And
it's ridiculous.
Something that we've been taught, and it's in no small part the fault of the media, but something that we've all been taught, especially as a black community, is that whenever we hear anything with the police and a black man, we all automatically become angry at the notion that the police have always been treating black community unfairly and stuff like that. And I used to be one of those people as well, so I don't really fault most people who are still in that phase of believing every single thing the media says. But one of the biggest issues that I had with this was the media coverage of it, because there was this perception that was portrayed through the media that this guy Dexter Reed was the victim in all of this.
That's false.
Now, I want to preface all of my comments in this video by saying this: I am not someone who thinks that the police is always right
by any stretch of the imagination.
As a matter of fact, I've been stopped numerous times by the police, and it's really upsetting when that happens, especially when you haven't done anything wrong. And I'm by no stretch of the imagination saying that the police is perfect in any aspect
at all.
When it comes to this story in particular, I'm sorry. Like, I cannot be in support of this at all. I cannot even, like, I cannot be on the side of this guy at all. I'm so sorry. Listen, at the end of the day, any loss of life is sad. And the fact that I even have to preface all of my comments by saying all of this stuff is really, really bothersome to me. But we got to take the facts for what the facts was. And he shot at the police. Like, I cannot stress this enough. Like, if anybody does the deep dive into this story and does the reading and has watched the footage, which I'm not going to play for you guys here because I don't necessarily know what YouTube is gonna really like censor or not, so I don't necessarily know the YouTube guideline in terms of what that, because it's a really, really graphic dash cam footage, so I'm not even gonna put that out there to you guys. Watch the footage yourself. It's on YouTube somewhere. I don't know if they've taken it down by now, but it's very, very clear in the footage that came out. Dexter shot at the police officers first. And the thing that happened, and one of the major headlines that came out of this story, was the notion that they shot him 96 times and it was really, really excessive and all of that. And I'm just like, listen, guys, at the end of the day, the minute Dexter decided to shoot at the police, he signed his death wish. I'm sorry, I don't want to hear any nonsense about this was too much, it was too brutal, it was uncalled for, they shouldn't have stopped him or anything like that. Maybe they shouldn't have stopped him. I don't necessarily know. Okay, I wasn't there. I can't even really give you any insight in terms of what that was and whether or not that should have happened or not. But the fact that it happened, to then shoot at the police, one, you had a firearm that you weren't supposed to have at the time. That's number one. And again, I don't want to seem like I'm supporting the police here.
I kind of am.
But at the end of the day, they still have a job to do, and they were doing their job. If they were conducting a routine traffic stop, they were doing their job, and they were well within their legislation or their legal rights to do so. Do they stop more black people or not? I don't necessarily know the statistics on that.
That's probably true.
But again, they were doing their job. With that being said, you had a firearm that you weren't supposed to have, and then you didn't comply with the police when they asked you to start pretty much getting out of the car, and then you open fire on them. All the nonsense that comes out about 96 shots.
Stop it.
Give me a fucking break on that, okay? The minute he shot at them, he wasn't getting out of there alive. 96 shots, 40 shots, 30 shots. I don't care what people say about it. He wasn't getting out of there alive the moment that he shot at them, and that is what we need to focus on. I also want to switch gears to this because there was something that really, really bothered me, was the response to some of this by some of the public officials that are supposed to be governing us in Chicago, and in particular, the mayor. And again, I don't necessarily know the mayor. I didn't vote in the last election, and maybe that was my fault and people like me's fault for allowing this person to come into office, but I don't even want to talk too much about the mayor and whether or not he should or shouldn't. But the thing that bothered me the most was I was watching one of his press conferences, and I don't necessarily know how many press conferences he did on this particular story, but I was watching one of his press conferences, and it just seemed like he was trying to be wishy-washy about the entire situation, and he was trying to like essentially kind of play both sides, but not really condemning what Dexter did in this particular instance because he didn't want to enrage his voter base or anything like that, which, okay, whatever. I guess that's how politics work.
I know this footage is extremely painful and traumatic for many of our city's residents. It will be especially difficult for those of us living in communities where the events depicted occur all too often. As mayor and as a father raising a family, including 2 black boys on the west side of Chicago, I am personally devastated to see yet another young black man lose his life during an interaction with the police. My heart breaks for the family of Dexter Reed. They are grieving the loss of a son, a brother, and a nephew. I spoke to Dexter's family this weekend and offered them my deepest condolences. I know there is also a community of friends, teammates, coaches, and neighbors who are all mourning his loss as well. I've also been praying for the full recovery of the officer who was shot during this interaction and who I visited in the hospital the day of the incident. And thankfully, he's recovering. But if that bullet had hit him a few inches in a different direction, I would be here today talking about the loss of another black man. It weighs heavily on me that this event took place just blocks away from my own community. And it is not lost on me that both Dexter Reed and this officer could have been my students. As a city, I want our efforts to be focused on accountability and transparency. And that is why today I'm joined by leadership from the Civilian Office of Police Accountability and the Cook County State's Attorney's Office. All of us up here are making a firm commitment to collaboration, to cooperation, and to provide transparency for the people of Chicago so that we can ensure that accountability is upheld and justice is achieved.
One of the things that really bothered me was when I was watching that, I just wanted him to pretty much come out and say point blank period, it is never okay to shoot at law enforcement.
Is that too much to ask?
I, again, have been stopped numerous times by the cops. I've been stopped for no reason sometimes. Under no circumstance have I ever thought it was okay, or has it even crossed my mind to resist arrest or anything. I've never been arrested, so let's be clear about that. I've never really gotten in any kind of legal trouble, but it's never crossed my mind to shoot at law enforcement. Like,
what were you even thinking?
And I really want to be sensitive to the family of this guy because they're going through a pain and a time right now that no family should have to go through. I think I've seen his mother crying on numerous occasions now, and it's really sad, and I want to be a little bit sympathetic to their situation. But at the end of the day, he got what was always going to happen to him the moment he decided that he was going to shoot police officers. I don't really understand what the protesting has been about. Like, I've seen a lot of protests now talking about how they want the officers who were involved in the murder of Dexter Reed to lose their jobs or whatever. And I'm just like, what the fuck are you guys protesting? If the police pull up on you, they stop you and they ask you to get out of the car, all you need to be doing is getting out of the car and doing exactly what they say. Again, I am not on the side of the police, but in this particular instance, I cannot refute anything that they did there. How would you have handled it? Like, if you were a police officer, I don't really understand what people would have wanted them to do. Dexter shot at them. Would you have wanted them to stand there and just go, Dexter, I know you shot at me, but you need to stop? Like, what would you have had them do in that particular situation? The police were, I wouldn't even say 100% right in this scenario, but they were right for the most part in what I've seen. Now, maybe stories will come out, which is possible. Maybe they didn't follow protocol, or maybe he didn't actually shoot at them first. I don't necessarily know. But as far as what we know right now and what has been reported, the police were completely in their right to do that. All the 96 shot stuff that people have been holding on to about how police brutality and all of that nonsense, and people, however stupid they want to be, start calling for defunding the police like they used to again, which is nonsensical. Chicago is a war zone. To have less police would be nothing short of stupid.
Completely fucking stupid.
So let's not even go down that path again. But for people to be calling for the officers to get fired and lose their jobs, it's like, what were they supposed to do in a scenario when somebody opens fire on them? Are you dumb? Like, I really don't get that. And I want to end off this video by saying this because I don't want to make the video a little bit too long. We need stronger leadership in most of our major cities as a whole, because our cities are falling into chaos right now and no one is doing a goddamn thing seemingly to stop any of these things. And I want to implore every single person in the city and even broader in the country to start waiting for the facts before just being immediately triggered by the media, because one of the reasons I think the media is losing all the credibility that it's losing right now is the fact that they're really disingenuous with some of these stories. They're really disingenuous with some of the headlines that they put out there, and it's making a lot of people fed up, if I'm being 100% honest, because one of the things I saw was 96 shots. You wouldn't imagine that this guy had actually prompted the shooting that he did.
It's like it didn't happen.
Maybe 96 was too much for you, whatever. My standpoint from that is he was always going to die the minute he shot them. 96 shots doesn't make him any deader than he was going to be. He was going to die the minute he opened fire on law enforcement. Now, let me know what you guys think in the comments down below, guys. Did you guys see this story? Do you guys live in Chicago? Where did this happen? And I just also want to put, because this story is something that hits really close to home, because it legitimately happened a 15-minute bike ride away from my house.
Which is disturbing.
So this is something that's really, and this is something that's been prevalent a lot in a lot of our neighborhoods in Chicago, and it's really sad that these things continue to happen, but I don't necessarily see a solution to it. It's like, people have reported that this guy had mental issues in the past. I think his family has also said that. So it's like, how did he even get a weapon to begin with? That's number one. Number two, yeah, sure, there's issues that the black community in particular have had with law enforcement, but the Hispanic community also has those issues. We don't never really see a lot of murders happening with the Hispanic population because I don't necessarily think the Hispanic population would ever have the gall to shoot at police officers. So there's that. But then it's also like we need to start paying attention to the facts. Okay, the facts are always going to be the facts. And in this particular scenario, I have to side with the police on this one. There's really no better way to handle a situation like this, especially when it escalates so quickly. So let me know in the comments down below, guys, what you guys think about this whole story. I don't necessarily know how people can even argue against the fact that this guy shot at the police, but let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. As always, guys, thanks for joining me on this video. You guys could have been anywhere else in the world, but you chose to be here with me, and I really, really do appreciate you.
If you liked what you heard today, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. If you didn't like what you heard, thanks for watching the whole video. Consider leaving a comment in the comment section and telling me exactly what you disagreed with. Either way, thanks for joining me on this video, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.